Yeah, good morning, Justin. I wanted to ask you about Jaden Ott. He's played two great games for you in the big game the last couple of years. How do you think he played the other day? Did you see some progress from him?
He seemed to have his legs back under him a little bit more. Obviously, we didn't play except really well anywhere last game. Unfortunately, he did have a big run, which was great to see. And both he and the Jet made big explosive runs. That was kind of the highlight of the day for our entire team. But I do think he looks like he's got his legs back a little bit, and excited for him to get some more opportunities this week.
How difficult has this season been for him, do you think?
Well, I don't want to speak for Jaden. I know everybody wants to be out there and at full strength as much as possible, and unfortunately, things happen. And he got dinged up early in the season, the first game, and been work in progress, trying to get back and back up to speed. And being healthy in this game is a relative term, and he's worked his way back onto the field, and I know he's feeling better and better, but I don't want to speak for him. It'd be good for you to ask him that.
It would be great for me to ask him that, but that was my next question. We haven't actually had a chance to talk with Jaden since I think August. Do you have any idea why he's been so shy with us and how things are going in that front?
I don't know. I think some guys, really take to expressing themselves and talking, and other guys not so much. We try to respect the individuals, and it's again, I don't want to go out and speak for Jaden. Let Jaden speak for himself, and I know what he wants to do is go out and play well. I think that's really what he's focused on.
Do you expect him to have a big game against Stanford? He's played really well against them his first 2 years.
He has, and I would expect. I think for us to go out and win, we're going to have to play our best game, and that's running back and quarterback, O D line, defensive backs, linebackers. You're going to take everybody.
All right, thank you.
All right, Jake Curtis, South
Just
Arizona
sort of on
Side.
that same train, do you think Jaden's 100% now healthy?
Again, Jake, I think that term 100% is relative, because football is a very physical game and people get dinged up, and anybody that's playing at this point in the season is working through something. Maybe it's a finger or a wrist or a shoulder or a tight quad muscle or a groin. There's not a lot of players out there playing football this late in the season who are a true 100%, like they would feel July 28th before camp starts. So again, I think it's a relative term. We're looking for relative health at this point in the season, and that's part of this game. I think if you absolute best every game, like you would maybe right before you start fall camp, I don't know that you'd ever play. I don't know that if you'd ever play a game, because you get dinged up. It's a very physical game. It's a violent game. Things happen, and guys are working through stuff.
Are you at all considering a change in the starting running back position?
We're looking for the most production we can possibly get, and we think we got good running backs in that room. I think the Jet obviously did some really good things, and we definitely want to get the Jet some more touches. But I think we got good running backs in that room.
Right, I understand that, but are you considering making a change in the starter there?
I think it takes more than one running back to play a game. So who runs out on the first play? What play are we going to call, Jake? What type of play is it? Is it an inside run? Is it a play action? Is it a boot? Is it an outside run? Is it a screen? Is it a trick play? What play is it? And then I can tell you which guy we might throw in there first.
Well, I'm just basing it on the number of carries that each player and the starter has had.
Yeah, like I said, we want to get Jet some more carries. He's been very productive. He's earned that. I also, as I said, believe you have to have more than one running back to carry the load.
All right, go to Steve Croner, SF Chronicle.
Yeah, Justin, good morning. You got two guys in the defensive backfield, Miles Williams and Craig Woodson, who've been with you for 6 years, who've graduated, who are from Texas. What have they meant to the Cal program in general, and what have they meant to Justin Wilcox in particular?
I could sit here and talk for a long time about each one of those guys. Starting with Craig. Craig came to us. He was I mean, in this era, lightly recruited. You'd consider him not as heavily recruited, certainly for the player he's become. And I remember, him coming here and his first fall camp. I just remember Craig about once a day or once every 2 days had an interception during practice, and that jumped out to all of us. He played early in his career. He played on special teams, and then we ended up redshirting him. And then he started playing more and more. He had an injury while he was here, unfortunately, that he worked through. But each year you could just see he was a very serious guy. He's pretty quiet. He's not a big rah-rah guy. He's not the loudest guy in the locker room. He's got a great personality, but he's very serious about football. He's an instinctive football player. And you just saw, and one of the great things for both those guys, they came into a defensive back room with guys that have seen how to do it, and watching some of those veterans in front of them, how they prepared for the meetings and practice and games, and just the professionalism that room has had. And so those guys were able to carry that forward. And Craig's had an excellent career. He's an excellent football player, and really a fine individual. And I'm really just proud of him as a player, as a person, who he is, and what he's going to do with his future in football. And it's been really impressive to watch. Miles, you both came from Texas, so they share that, and they've been buddies from way back. And Miles, the start of his career probably wasn't as smooth, to be honest with you. And he's a good athlete. He's always had really good hand-eye coordination, but it took a little bit. In all fairness, it took a little bit just learning how to do things, and from the football side, off the field. And I have been so impressed from where Miles started his career here, just on and off the field, to where he is today, is a testament to him, the people around him, the support here at Cal. It's just been incredible to watch. I mean, I could sit here, and we probably don't have time to take you through all the ups and downs, but just to see the growth of the human being, and then the growth as a football player, it's something I'm really just so incredibly proud of him and what he's done, and the work he's put in, and the perseverance he showed. And there were times, to be honest, like it wasn't smooth. It was not smooth for Miles, but it's what college football should be. A guy that comes in, and maybe it's not all perfect, but he learns how to do it. He gets an education, he graduates, he grows up as a man, he gets on the field, he's a starter in his last year here, and it's just an excellent story. So I'm glad you're going to talk to him about it, because both those guys kind of epitomize what college football players are, and they have different paths, and it doesn't always go exactly as planned. And I'm a little fearful, in this new era, you don't have as many of those stories, to be honest with you. But those two guys, I'm just incredibly proud of. I'm proud that they're Cal Bears. I'm impressed what they're doing on the field, and just their mentality and how they've evolved and matured as men.
One follow-up, but you had Daniel Scott as a sixth-year guy, and Matthew Cindric, and now these two guys. Are there characteristics those four guys have that distinguishes them beyond the fact that they were in the Cal program for 6 years?
Well, when you watch any of those guys, 6 years, you mentioned Cindric, you mentioned Daniel. We had some other guys who played as freshmen but stayed their extra year, who probably could have gone out maybe and had an opportunity to play. Cam Bynum was one of those. Elijah Hicks was one of those.
They were not 6-year guys, though, correct?
Right. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. But they came back and they finished. But I would say those 6-year guys, it's the maturity. It's how they approach everything in their lives, off the field, how they, their accountability to the team as a student, their accountability to the team as a leader, what they're doing off the field, how they're taking care of their body. They're just very, very mature. And, being able to live a really organized life and live lean and not get mixed up and distracted by too many things. And all those guys are great examples of that.
Great. Thank you.
All right, Jim McGill, Bear Insider.
Hey, Justin, looking back at the Syracuse game, the first half performance was well below the bar the team and the staff has set for themselves this season. Looking at the film, beyond the couple of interceptions, is there any common denominator about what happened there? Were guys maybe overconfident? Was the energy low? What was happening there?
I don't get the sense there was overconfidence. We had great respect for their team. I mean, I coming into the game, we felt like especially their offense was probably one of the top two, maybe three, but certainly one of the top offenses we've seen personnel-wise. Our players knew that. So it wasn't a lack of respect for their team by any means. They physically, they pushed us up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage. So we never really got any negative plays. They were ahead of the chains. And then in all the critical downs, the third downs, whether it was a lack of pass rush or the one-on-one situations, they beat us. I mean, they beat us really, and we had missed tackles in some one-on-one situations. We had a couple fourth down opportunities that we did not make. So ultimately, it was about the execution of the play and the matchups, and we didn't win near enough of those moment of truth plays, not even close.
Shifting to the big game, half your roster is new, and a lot of the traditions of the big game have fallen by the wayside over the years. A lot of it we can thank to some of the prior Stanford coaches who just didn't participate, and we're just not seeing a lot of those traditions occur now. Is there a waning sense of the importance of the game amongst the players, or have you come up with creative ways to impress upon them how important that game is historically and to the fan base?
Yeah, we educate them. We educate them early in camp. They hear about it. We talk about it. I think it's important to it's one of the great things of college football. I say this every year is the rivalry games and the history. I mean, this is the 127th time this game's been played. A lot of phenomenal players, a lot of pride involved for each institution. And so educating them on that, we'll talk about it each and every day. We have, we have moments prior at the start of the team meeting that we educate them. We talk about it. We have, videos, and we have some special guests that offer up their insight on the big game and what it means to them. And so absolutely, we want to make sure that our players understand that. I also think, being fair to somebody that's been in the program for 6 months or 1 year, they don't have the history. So it's our job to explain it, educate them. And the longer you're in it and the older you get, you have a deeper and deeper appreciation. And it doesn't mean the first year player doesn't appreciate it, but it's his first opportunity to be involved in it. So we're trying to educate them at every chance we get. But the most important thing is that we're preparing the best we can to go out and play the best we can to give ourselves the absolute best shot to win.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Matt Moreno, Rivals.
It's your guys' last opportunity to host recruits, this season before the early signing period. How important is this kind of final stretch for you guys? And how have you felt like things have gone so far on the recruiting side?
Recruiting is year round. As you mentioned, there are opportunities to get them on your campus. We're going to continue to do that. We've had some great visits in recruiting. And recruiting, again, is like I just said, it's never over. I mean, and we've had, depending on how your team changes, what your team needs. I mean, we're evaluating our team every week, and that will dictate certain positions and how heavy we go in high school recruiting and transfer recruiting. So that's being evaluated each and every week. So our priorities may adjust as the season moves along. After the season, there's going to be changes. So all that's got to be taken into account. I feel really good about the work that the staff's done and our recruiting staff and the reception we've gotten recruiting and what's in front of us. We're going to be very, very aggressive and we'll in recruiting, not only in high school, but in the transfer portal.
Is it fair to say the offensive and defensive lines are kind of the priorities right now as you kind of head into this final stretch?
Yeah, yes, I think that's fair to say. We have to, that's a very competitive market, for good reason. There's just fewer people walking the earth that have the physical tools to be good at those positions. So just like everybody else, the O-line and D-line is going to be a priority for us. I don't know that any school out there, is going to look at the O-line and D-line and say it's not a priority. Maybe they have a few more players in their program that they feel good about that might be, a year away. But it's certainly going to be a big emphasis for us moving forward.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, back to Jake Curtis.
It's supposed to rain heavily on Friday, rain on Saturday too. Does that affect any?
Hey, Jake, you're breaking up a little bit. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your question.
Yeah, it's expected to be some heavy rain on Friday and some rain on Saturday too. Does that affect your game plan at all?
We will work wet ball mechanics. We're probably going to be able to get some of that naturally here in the coming days, and we'll be ready for whatever the elements are.
All right, back to Jeff Ferrano.
Justin, can you give us an update on the status of Kedu Lawave?
He's day-to-day at this point, Jeff. I know he wants to play in the absolute worst way, and so he's gotten better and better over the weekend, and it's a day-to-day deal at this point.
Otherwise, you're reasonably healthy, relatively healthy, to use your word?
Yes.
And can you talk about Ashton Daniels, the Stanford quarterback, was ACC quarterback of the week, but he's had a really kind of uneven year where I think he was pulled from 2 different games, but other times he's played real well. What do you see in him, and what's the challenge in dealing with him?
Well, he's a heck of an athlete, first and foremost. He's big. He's got good size, 6'2", 215, 220. He's averages 5 yards a carry. He can throw the football. He's got good targets. Ellick is a heck of a receiver. They got a young guy that's really stepped up, number 10. And so, and Coach Taylor's very creative. They're going to have different looks. They're going to be in formations and schemes. They will give you different looks week to week. It's not going to be exactly what you saw before. So they're very creative that way offensively. He does a great job. And then they're coming off a 38-point output. And so I think Ashton's a heck of a player. I mean, those other QBs that they played, and I don't know exactly what went into the decisions. Those other guys are good players too. But obviously the running game with Ashton, the way they can outnumber people in the run game by using the quarterback and then still, throw some traditional pass game. And that's without the wrinkles and the exotics that they'll give you.
And if I can ask you something about their defense, they've got some veterans at certain places, but they're really young at cornerback. I think they start a freshman and a sophomore, and they've given up a lot of passing yards. Do you look at this and see this as an opportunity to get your passing game going again, or how do you look at that?
Well, we need to put the ball in the end zone. And in order to do that, the best way to do that is be able to run it and throw it. And you mentioned the guys that they have coming back. David Bailey is an excellent player. I know he was dinged up just a little bit, but man, is he a force on the edge. Tobin Phillips is a really good interior player. The 2 linebackers are excellent. Tristan seems like he's been there forever, but the 2 inside linebackers are good. They have had some injuries in the secondary, but their safeties are good players. I remember recruiting Mitch way back when down from Southern California. What's important for us is to be efficient running the ball and then, efficient throwing the ball. That's the best thing you do offensively is have some balance. Once you become one-dimensional, it can be difficult. So what's best for our group, personnel-wise, and for us to score the most points is to have some balance.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, back to Steve Kroner.
Yeah, Justin, for those of us who've lived all our lives in the Bay Area, we know the big game, but we really don't know the rivalry games outside of the Bay Area. You've experienced other rivalry games. For someone who has experienced other rivalry games, what distinguishes this one?
Well, first and foremost, the number of times, the history of it. I believe it's the west of the Mississippi River. It's been played the most. 127 times. It's there's a lot of history there, a lot of pride, a lot of people care. And I've been fortunate to be a part of some great rivalry games, whether it's the Civil War at Oregon State or the Apple Cup at Washington Washington State, and being in the Big Ten at Wisconsin and Tennessee. And this rivalry game is as passionate and meaningful as any rivalry game I've ever been a part of. There's no question about that.